Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have met over the summer, 3 days for several hours each day. And I know all of you tirelessly worked more than just those 3 days during the summer when we were with you, but you worked hard on coming up with interdisciplinary global educators, whether it was a unit or lesson or curriculum. And so tonight we'd like to show off what you worked on, and we had 5 teams participate. The teams that participated during the summer were West Albany School, Student Achievement Center, Westridge, Riverside, and Sewickley Academy. And when we randomly selected the numbers, West Albany actually came up as the first presenter. So I would like to call on West Albany, June, who is going to briefly talk us through and tell us about the project that her team was working on.
Thank you. I came home because I'm on the West Coast, so I made that rush trip home, and now I'm at my home office, which there may be unplanned sounds every now and then. So my apologies ahead of time. My partner is not with me tonight because she is our cross-country coach, and she, it's still cross-country season here. So, whoops, sorry, I wanted to present, not share something else again. Here we go. Okay, so you should shortly be seeing my screen. There we go. Okay, so what we wanted to do is we had taught way back when, before the pandemic, in fact, literally on the last day of school, before we all got sent home for the pandemic, we had planned a shared lesson. She's a Spanish and history teacher, and I am a social studies teacher. So we wanted to create something that met these three. Let me move this a little further out of the way here. There we go. We wanted to create something that built upon what we both taught. So our rationale was we wanted to teach about a part of the world, Central America, that our students as 9th graders don't cover very well in their 6th grade year. Oregon standards are similar to other states in that our 6th grade students cover Native American civilizations. So they look at Central America in the way, 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 way past. And so we wanted to bring them back to Central America, a really important region of the world for the United States. We also did not want to focus on Mexico. We wanted to focus on a different topic that actually, not that studying Mexico doesn't have relevance, but we talk about Mexico as an example a lot. So we actually focused on Guatemala. We wanted to plan a human geography rich lesson, and we also wanted to really give it a heavy dose of QTEL and AVID strategies throughout this lesson. And I know in 10 minutes and less now that I'm not going to have time, obviously, to go through every single slide. So I'm just going to give you the big overview and then touch on a couple of things that we did in particular. We also wanted our students to develop critical thinking about this region by developing critical thinking skills focused on this region that they could apply elsewhere. And also we wanted them to build on a really important unit that our 9th grade world history students study, which is imperialism and colonialism in Africa. So we wanted them to see that the things that define imperialism and colonialism in Africa aren't just isolated to that one part of the world. And surprise of surprises, we wanted to show our students that the United States has also been an imperial power, especially they had not yet studied that part yet in their US history classes. So this was actually eye-opening information to our students. So we, this summer when we were working, which seems so long ago now, when we were working with the group, but way back at the end of June, one of the big takeaways we got was, one, banana republics, although we teach our students that that's an old term that's fallen out of use, our group shared with us in our debrief session at the end of the week that maybe we should de-emphasize the whole banana republic idea. So we came up with a new title, and we also really worked with I'm trying to get to the framework here, the framework that we learned about early on in the week that we spent together back in June by employing a global perspective with these 5 points, and you can see them right up here: connections, divisions, etc. And so we kept bringing our students back to that in this unit, this really like 5 days of lessons that we've developed. We're going to keep bringing our students back to this. So we haven't actually taught this yet because we're not far enough in the school year. We don't start until after Labor Day. And so my colleague's students, she's the one that will be teaching that this year to her 9th graders. We haven't reached this point in the curriculum yet, but she just taught about imperialism in Africa. So it's coming here real soon. And she employed this this framework with teaching about imperialism in Africa. And she said that although it seemed a little bit of a stretch for our 9th graders, that she's laid the foundation. She's put out enough breadcrumbs. So anyway, just to emphasize a couple high points here is that we broke the lesson down into 3 parts. We want to explain how imperialism in Central America is similar to what's happening in Africa, and that gives them the foundation to understanding other forms of imperialism, like during the Cold War, or economic imperialism when they take a social studies class in their sophomore or junior year. We also really wanted to emphasize the 5 themes of geography. That's an important part of the 9th grade social studies year anyway, and we're making them specifically connected to the idea of imperialism. So we have some foundational information, and then part 2, really digging into this concept of banana republic with at least 3 characteristics, and have them looking at a lot of data and coming to this point where we're going to give them a blank map of Central America that asks them to, based on what they've learned so far about imperialism and what defines a banana republic, what countries do they think might still be a developing economy. And in part 2, that's where we really bring in the concept of developing economies, lesser developed economies versus more developed economies. And then the last part is an in-depth case study with Guatemala. Questions, because I can't see your faces at this moment. So if there's a question, maybe put it in the chat or just blatantly interrupt me. I don't want to go through slide by slide, and I can't because of time anyway, but because my colleague is a Spanish teacher, we incorporated a lot of high frequency Spanish words. Spanish is by far the most popular language that our 9th graders take as a foreign language, as a second language. And so she actually teaches not a blended class in Spanish and English, but she uses a tremendous amount of Spanish in her classes. So you scattered throughout the lesson are words that are cognates with English and high frequency Spanish words. One of the things that we wanted to do also was we wanted to use a variety of engagement strategies. So the link to this Jamboard is not active at this point because we want to make it specific to our classes, but we plan to use Jamboard, for example, just to get some ideas out there. And that's a really low stakes way for students to express ideas at the very beginning of a lesson because they don't have to attach their name to their sticky note. We also wanted, these are moving very, very slowly. We also wanted to really emphasize vocabulary. So we broke down complex words for them too. Just so I don't need to go throughout the rest of the lesson, to scroll through the slides to show you a couple things. I'll just tell you that we incorporated the QTEL strategy of the double entry journal for a complex reading that we have, a reading and a film that we have them viewing. So they'll be doing a double entry journal where they write down a key idea and then they supply the evidence. They're going to be involved. They're involved very, very consistently with turning to a partner or turning to a group in order to discuss, and the discussion is very focused, as AVID and QTEL strategies need real focused conversation, not just turn to a partner and talk about what you just saw, but turn to a partner and discuss 3 ways in which you can see imperialism in Latin America or Central America. So we have real specific strategies. We also, just a couple of days ago, one of us was listening to the song Deo by Harry Belafonte, and it occurred to us that song is so upbeat and cheerful that if we incorporated that into our lesson as well, that in the early part of the lesson, asking students what could they glean from the production of bananas by listening to this song. And we tested it out on a couple students a couple days ago, and they didn't pick up that picking bananas and hauling heavy bananas is a really actually backbreaking hard work. That the type of work, the type of agricultural work that's typical of developing economies. And so we're going to add that song near the beginning of the lesson, and then toward the end of the lesson, we'll really dig into what it meant to be involved in the production of bananas in Guatemala for an American company, how that wasn't at all glamorous, but yet today, even still in lesser developed countries, in developing economies, we still see that kind of backbreaking hard work, 6 or 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. So I don't know if I have much time left, but I can stop right here and take questions from anybody. And I think we're sharing all our presentations with everyone anyway. So ask away.
And what Ashlyn and I prepared ahead of time too was our version of Jamboard in case you feel more inclined to type the comments, and that could be available for people to respond to at a later time, because I know everybody's stressed for time these days. So Ashlyn just posted a Jamboard in our chat. So if anyone has a question they would like to ask now, that's fine. Otherwise, feel free to comment on Jamboard.
And also, I just wanted to say that we so appreciate the $200 grant, and that we received our supplies, and we're already putting the mini whiteboards to good use, because that was one of the engagement strategies, was to have students create some visuals as part of their interaction with each other. And so that's been extremely helpful. We also, as this lesson is still in development, even though it's ready to go, we have taught it a year and a half ago, but we also ordered some wall maps of change over time in Latin America, in Central America. And those maps arrived too. And that's going to add a whole nother element, because what we'll have people do is probably like a silent graffiti walk, where we'll place the maps with blank paper behind it and ask students to make observations over time about the changes they see in Central America, from colonies with colonial names and to modern day countries. Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to learn together and to plan together this summer. It really made a huge difference. I look forward to hearing what everybody else has developed even further.
Thank you, June. Veronica, do you have a question since you raised your hand?
I did. I was curious to ask June how this lesson was perceived with her colleagues and her administration.
That's a good question. The very first time we taught it, we invited our principal to come in to do double duty so she could do an observation on both of us. And our district has really invested very heavily in AVID and QTEL strategies. And so there's a little bit of a disconnect, I think, between admin about what that actually looks like in the classroom versus what it actually looks like in the classroom. And so we spent a lot of time in the preparing the learner phase. And I think our administrator felt like we were spending too much time on that. And so that's a disconnect that needs to be addressed. Our other colleagues admire us working together and creating something that to them looked really hard, but for us, it was something we were highly interested in. So we were involved very deeply in it. Also, I have an opportunity to share it across the district at this point, and I have an eager audience of teachers from one of our other high schools who have a very large Spanish-speaking population. So they're eager to try this one out.
Thanks, June. Very interesting project.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Do we have any other questions? If we do not, we are happy to move on to Student Achievement Center. And I'm not sure whether Rachel or Ashanti will be presenting. So just take over.
Okay. Ashanti, just jump in whenever you feel like. And just give me a thumbs up or a yes, I can see your screen.
I don't know if you could see our thumbs up, but yes, we can see your screen.
Thank you. I was trying to find the double monitors. So welcome. Our team is from the Student Achievement Center, and I'm going to focus on the process, where we stand, do a little project overview, some hurdles, and some outcomes. So our team is Kathy Acamando, me, Rachel Millern, and Ashanti York. And Kathy works as an ELA teacher. I represent chemistry, and Ashanti represents biology. And our project focuses on lessons that are going to provide our students with opportunities that build and reflect on perspectives of self, local community, global community, and the interconnectedness of all three. In all content areas, English, biology, and chemistry, we want to integrate myths and legends from around the world and connect them to our specific curriculum content. And the overall questions or essential questions that we are using to guide us through our individual planning in our specific content areas were: how do stories and theories shape as well as reflect a culture? What are the elements of an effective argument? What happens when we value certain knowledge over others? And why does this matter to me, to my people and place, and to the world? And we had, working together over the summer, we developed a guide, values and attitudes, that we wanted our students to come out of our lessons with. And there were a lot of overlap. Ethically, we have a duty to protect each other. We want to focus on the awareness of the interconnectedness of a lot of the topics that we will cover, and value and respect of diversity. Within each of our areas, for the knowledge and the content area, it does look a little bit different in how we plan and what we want to do. For example, I want students to read and interpret hidden meanings, whether it's in theories or myths, and connect them to scientific and engineering practices. Kathy wanted her students to make inferences from the text through the lens of a scientist, and how this view is applicable to them, their world, and to their community, and to the world. And Ashanti wanted her students to interpret how groups of people viewed the world, and how new discoveries in technology has perhaps changed that view. And she wants her students to evaluate if these new discoveries in technology have improved their way of life within their own communities as well as globally. Of course, we all face some hurdles in planning. Some commonalities that we've all been experiencing is finding resources, being able to find a myth or a legend that is not only engaging, but has the ability to give our students the windows and the mirrors to see outside the local communities and the world and how it's all connected, and see themselves out there, but also have those narratives reflect themselves, which has been challenging. I think we're doing it though. We have some good myths and legends. Another struggle or hurdle that we've come up against is finding time to collaborate with each other as a team. Over the summer was great, dedicated time that we all were working together, building ideas and strategizing for our lessons. But school starts and it's just a whirlwind of things that you have to do, the daily responsibilities for our students. It's difficult to find the time to collaborate with each other and keep connected. Another hurdle that's similar across all three is finding ways for our students to take action. Part of that global citizenship is having an understanding of the interconnectedness, how we're all a part of the world together, and what we do impacts everything and everyone. But how do we empower our students to do something related to what we're teaching or the topics that we're covering? What does that look like in each of our classes? How do we connect ELA, chemistry, and biology with a cumulative assessment? So those have been some of our struggles, hurdles, challenges. Shanti, did you want to add anything else?
Yeah, that's good. You're doing a good job. Thank you.
Okay. That's really all we had, just going over our overview, some of our targets that we want to hit on. We haven't implemented our lessons. Each of us want to do a week's worth of lessons. But like West Albany, we started late, and we are planning for some of these lessons to occur in the second quarter and third and fourth. And I will leave the rest of our time, I'm hoping we have some, for any questions.
And Rachel, I was just wondering, sorry, Tracy, I see you raise your hand. Just quickly, I wanted to ask this team if you have been thinking about the curriculum material that you might want to use. You're still welcome to send that in, and we'd be happy to order it for you.
Thank you.
That's good. We have switched our book. That's what we decided to buy. So I think we're just trying to get a consensus on exactly which one has the myths that we can all share the most with. So that's what we're trying to decide.
And I see Tracy and Molly have their hands up.
Yeah, so I was just, as a chemistry teacher, I was wondering, you said you had picked a couple of myths, and I was wondering what they were.
Oh yeah.
I also wrote it in the Jamboard too, so that was also me. Yeah.
I had found some Maori myths, as well as 10 myths that have science behind them. There is a myth in, I think it's Cameroon, where there was a lake that a population of people had died. And the way that they explained it was a story about revenge, and they had died because they were the wrongdoers of the other people. But really, it was a collection of toxic gases at this lake that caused the deaths. So a bunch of these stories, the 10 myths that I had collected, and I'll share on that Jamboard, there are some scientific explanations behind the stories that we're reading. Ashanti, and you also have some myths in biology, also science.
Yes, there's one that I was working with. It's about the Navajo Indians and how they came to be as far as Earth, and their belief in that most of their stories start with the man and the woman, and they are the ones who go about and create the different things upon Earth. So one of the things that they had to decide was if death was going to be forever. And the story goes on to say how they decided that death would be a final answer. But the irony in that is that shortly after that, their daughter died, and the woman was the one who wanted death to be final. She brought up the fact that there would be too many people on Earth and things of that sort. So I haven't actually developed our week worth of lessons like we were talking about, but I actually used this already with speaking with population. We're doing ecology right now. So the population, and we went over COVID and different things of that, and how our population has changed due to that. So this was a good example. That was a good myth to use about death and how, if not, the overcrowdedness happens.
Thank you. And Molly, I see your hand up as well.
Yes, thank you. My question was about myths also. So a lot of that was actually already answered, but I'm really curious about it because I don't know if you know, I think it's a Waldorf thing in general, which is a global education model. At least my familiarity with the whole, how it works around the world is I'm still learning, but in Pittsburgh, they actually, the myths that I'm aware of that they use are not so, like, I don't see them as being so relevant currently to students' lives. So that's really interesting to me how you plan on, and I'd love to know more about how you plan on kind of framing that for students and what age groups, and like, how do you introduce that to make it relevant to them in a local, global kind of way. But perhaps that's something you're still figuring out. But I think it's really cool that it's a STEM thing, but it's also, I think of it more as easier to kind of implement in a humanities way. Like they have drawings that they do. So I wasn't really aware of the science connection, but I think that's really interesting, especially for relevance for students, because that probably motivates them more.
And I think
that's not a specific question, I'm sorry, but I guess there are a few in there.
My students are actually very accepting of it. I introduced it as, why should we learn these myths and what can we get from this culture? So they were very accepting of that part, which had them, get into the lesson, but they actually liked it.
Oh, thank you.
And I think for science in particular, we often have to read about a lot of white men. And I think this gives us an opportunity to look at how other countries and other cultures have passed on stories and knowledge. And it's not so Eurocentric.
Thank you. Good luck.
We really appreciate being a part of this project, and thank you everyone for the time and the sharing of resources.
Thank you, Rachel, Shanti. We just got a word from the West Coast, and they're unable to join us at this time when they're supposed to present. They're trying to log in as soon as they can. So if okay with everyone, if we could move to the next group of presenters, and then we'll hopefully get Westridge at the end of this presentation. So Riverside, would you mind going next, please?
Okay, yes, I'll present. Hi, I'm Meg Frank. I'm from Riverside High School, and Raylene Boots is with me and her student teacher, and Jackie Pinchot should be joining me. So let me share our presentation.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, can everyone, you can hear me, Maya? Okay, so we are teachers of Riverside, and Raylene and I have worked before on a similar project with Maya in this Global Educators. And we decided to do it again this year. And we focused on migration. So our theme started with the book we read in Pitt's Global Studies group, which is called The Distance Between Us. It's by Reina Grande. And she recounts her life growing up in Mexico and the United States. Okay, so we read this book together. We thought it would be a great book to introduce to our 10th graders. And then this year, I used to teach all the 10th grade, and Raylene taught all the 10th grade, but this year it's a little different. So when I didn't have the honors, so I brought Jackie Pinchot into the group to work with this as well. And we pretty much have all the same grouping. There is one group of 10th graders that Raylene doesn't teach, but this project works well when we have everyone together, and it works well even if the kids don't have one of us. So the rationale behind this was that this book was great to center on our project because we have a very small ELL population where we are, but a lot of people have met the ones we have migrated from Mexico. And we thought the students can find some commonalities with the migrants, because even though this book is about that, it really focuses on the family. And there were a lot of, we thought the kids would really relate to it, and they did. So when we started talking about the book in our work session, we were talking about immigration, and Maya came in and she said, why don't you change it to migration? And it kind of opened it up to a whole different theme, and it really worked well with actually everything we planned this year. So we have a twofold project. Jackie and myself, we focus on the literature aspect, and Raylene teaches the world cultures part of it. Okay, so this is basically how we taught this unit. We actually are just getting done teaching it, so it was a nice way to start the year. It really engaged the students, and we have some pictures to show for you. So in literature, we focused on just with the kids writing about their own migration story. Then we went to use the book, The Distance Between Us, we bought with the grant money. And then we did an exploration of Mexican culture. And then we thought of ways to continue the theme of migration throughout the year. And then Raylene will talk about her aspects, which
Right. So
Okay.
we started out in a very general way from the 5 themes of geography, the movement of people, and then we narrowed it down, people and ideas, and we narrowed it down. And right now we're talking about the Day of the Dead.
Okay, so in the literature aspect, we explored migration. The students talked about their families' histories, and so it was an interesting take to see how far back the students could see who moved in their family. We didn't want to limit it to immigration, so it was any kind of movement. It could be movement in the community, in the state, from one side of the town to the other. And the kids went home and talked about it, and they in some way were able to share some kind of story. And we refer back to this a lot. Okay, it was good to find out as teachers, what kind of movement goes on. And then they could relate to the girl in the book. And then we also talked about why people move and why they stay. And then Raylene, focused on this in world cultures with the push and pull factors. So this is basically how we went through the book. And we use Jamboards also, talking about character traits. Memoirs, that we went into what are difference about memoirs. So which was nice about us from a literature aspect is we were able to teach all the skills we need to teach, focus on those standards, but choose this book to really push our theme. So we were able to talk about different genres and writing 6-word memoirs, and which they wrote about other characters. And then we went, at the end of it, we talked about Mexican culture that they pulled out, that she talked about in the book. And we did the Day of Dead. Now Raylene's doing the Day of Dead. So it really came together nicely. And it's next week is the Day of the Dead. So we watched the video. I want to show all these videos that are all in the PowerPoint. And then, my God, we got the art teacher involved, which next, if we get to do this again, we tried to get her in the summer. I couldn't get a hold of her, but she jumped right in and she made us some skulls. Here's some pictures of them painting the skulls. She created the mold herself. She's firing them, and the kids got to paint this. And they learned that in the book, Raina talks about learning what Halloween is, and talked about how, it was nothing like Day of the Dead. And she talked about that. So the kids got a chance to do something creative. And then we thought of other ways to expand the theme. First of all, we have other projects. We have the project we did last year that it deals with migration and movement. So some of our other books fit into this theme, and I'm planning a field trip. And so everything I'm thinking of doing now kind of ties into this theme, which is really nice because it gives a whole nother layer to teaching literature and English, that we can refer back to it every year. And then, so here's Raylene's end.
Yeah. So it's been a real pleasure with the students being able to make connections between their English class and their world cultures class and their art class. That doesn't happen very often. So we started out with movement of people, goods, and ideas. My student teacher has taught about the Columbian Exchange, as you see on the screen. So Meg, if you'll change to the next screen.
Sorry.
That's okay. So the 5 themes of geography, we taught all 5 themes, but the movement of people and ideas really leads into a project that I've done for many years at Riverside. But I've used this collaboration to really make a connection for the kids. Now, the students that I have been visitors to our international showcase, and now they're actually the students who do the international showcase. So we have about 30 tables of different countries and holidays, and they teach the younger kids in our district about those countries and holidays. So if you'll advance the slide, Meg. Yeah, so instead of, I don't usually teach the Day of the Dead, but because I knew that the 10th graders were reading the book and we connected it to the Latin American culture, we are currently this week teaching about the Day of the Dead. The students are watching a movie. But if you look at those posters, those are posters of students in years past who have examined and analyzed the similarities and differences between the holidays in different cultures. So it helps them to see how migration leads to cultural diffusion, and we're all kind of part of the same big world. So if you'll send to the next slide, Meg. So this week we're watching the movie Coco, which is a really good representation of how things are celebrated in one culture, and they might be the same as things that are celebrated in a different culture. So in world cultures, just like in English class, they're analyzing their own traditions, how they remember their ancestors and people who have passed, and comparing that to how they do it in the Day of the Dead in Mexico. So I appreciate the opportunity to connect the classes like we've done. I don't know if there's another slide, Meg.
Oh, yeah. So then we were thinking of ways of doing it, next year. We have our art teacher. She's like all in on anything we want to do. So I'm like constantly thinking of other things that, and the odd thing, like I always thought with these projects, we have to have the same kids. And if you don't have the same kids, how are you going to do it? And that's kind of comes up a lot. But she's helping me with my classes. Her kids watch it. She said, oh, my kids are all involved now. They want to do this too. So they see her getting stuff ready to use with my class. And so she introduces it to her art classes. So I think there's a lot of, that's why I was always listening. How are people doing it with when you don't have all the same kids in the high school setting? And it's really cool. And I think of more and more ways of expanding this. And I was thinking of the carton.
I think
Go ahead,
won't we look at the foods classes next
Yeah.
year?
Yeah, we have ideas.
Foods.
Foods, and we could do music. Also, I just came across
Yes.
the cartoneras from something from Pitt that came in the thing and in the email, and I'm like, oh, this could be next year. And then I was talking to someone else, and he said Pitt will come and build an altar and offer, and they can help you do that. And I'm like, well, it has to be next year because we're running out of time. But I just think there's more and more ways we can expand this whole unit. I appreciate it, like Aileen said, for the opportunity to get together and do all of this.
And I appreciate my student teacher. She's the one who's teaching it right now. So she's learning how this collaboration works, which I think is really good.
Thanks, Raylene. It's been an incredible opportunity to see something like this and to even come to a meeting like this too. That doesn't happen often. So I'm really thankful to be a part of it and to teach right now because it's been really, really fun. So I'm just happy to have the opportunity to do it.
Thank you, Meg, Raylene, Kylie. We appreciate it. There are, as you were talking about your project and mentioned Cartoneras as one event that is coming up that you might want to participate in. There are other ideas in development that we will be most certain to contact you about. So you may want to participate in those as well. But we're going to be sharing all these programming that we're thinking about creating in the future with all of you via our weekly news and events and newsletters. And so keep your eyes and ears open. And we always love to see you back doing things with us.
Thank you.
Veronica, you have a question that you'd like to ask?
I do. I was really curious, and I'm sorry that I'm still on my phone, so I can't see everybody's name, but the person who just spoke, the student teacher, and I was curious first to know where you're doing your program, and second, what, by seeing these fantastic teachers collaborating, world cultures, English, and art, what do you think you can take back to your program as a student teacher?
So I'm studying, I'm studying at Slippery Rock University. I'll be graduating in December.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it's coming up. So it's been really exciting for me because as having social studies as my content, sometimes a lot of people, believe it or not, this is just the first thing that comes to mind. When I tell people my content, believe it or not, a lot of people will tell me, oh, okay, that's boring, but cool, good for you type of thing. And I tried to tell them that, well, it's actually very important because what we learn in social studies, what we learn in world cultures is that we are all global citizens and we are learning life skills. And these kids need to be exposed to those life skills and also to the fact that we are all part of this world and that we are all global citizens. It is more than just geography. It is more than just history or dates and names and events. Collaborating with these teachers has been amazing because it shows that more content areas such as English, such as art, are all involved in cultural studies and all involved in social studies. And it's really, really fun to take these different medias and these different content areas and show people it's not just reading a book somewhere in a library, even though I find that fun. It is more about bringing people together and showing that it's more than just one area. So I'm a very creative individual. So whenever I heard about the calaveras or the skulls, the sugar skulls, I got real excited because I thought that was such a great way to show, listen, this is a part of Mexican culture. This is a really, really very important holiday, and they are being exposed to it, and they can also do their own project with this. And I think that that's so important, especially in areas that do have a smaller diversity population, and they really need to be exposed to more cultures. And this collaboration, I will tell you, I've never seen anything like it. I graduated from high school 10 years ago, and I know it's been a while, but it truly, I don't remember a time where I've seen a collaboration like this. And it is amazing that not only are they doing something super fun and going at this together, it's 3 different teachers in 3 different areas that are doing this and really, really committed. And I see it every single day, and it is amazing because you don't see that often. At least I didn't in my high school. So that's what I have had the most amazing opportunity. I will wrap up here. I'm talking a lot, but it's just been so amazing because I truly haven't seen anything like it before. Honest to God, I haven't. And it's just so cool to see. So I will definitely be taking this away from my experience because I truly got very, very lucky with my placement, and I couldn't ask for anything better.
Well, Kylie, I hope that you find a fantastic school to work at and that you come and join us as a teacher as well in future workshops.
Thank you. Oh, I absolutely will. This is amazing. Thank you.
I'd like to add one more thing. So, and then with what I didn't even say, my main goal on reading the whole book and learning everything is for my students to gain empathy for the for Mexican immigrants and people that they will encounter. And you know, the story was so relatable, and sadly the girl was abused and there was a lot of issues in her life, and the kids just really responded to her and the other characters. And it was so funny, in one of the notebook comments, they had to put their favorite character, and a lot of them related to her older sister, who was real tough and would beat up other people that messed with her. And so many kids said, I see her in me, I see her in me. And I thought of all the things we did, I really hope that because sometimes, you know, we do get a lot of Mexican immigrants, and I think, okay, if they have this empathy that, you know, comes from reading this book and seeing that these, you know, they can relate to this person who went through very similar situations, sadly, that a lot of them go through. So it was a really great project, and I'm really, you know, appreciate everything Pitt does for us to get all this going.
Meg, I was going to tease you about your Penn State shirt, but that's
I
okay.
know, I saw it. Well, you know what? I went to both schools. I almost changed. Because I got my undergrad Pitt and my grad Penn State, and I'm like, oh man, I should put the Pitt one on.
We don't hold grudges. No. Well, thank you so much, all of you. And let's see if we don't have any more questions for Riverside, we'll move on to Sewickley Academy. If you guys are ready, go ahead.
Okay, let me just get my screen share here. Whoops. Can you see the presentation here?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Can you just do in present mode?
Yep, that's where I'm headed. There we go. Okay.
Hi, I'm Tracy Wazenegger, and Michael Ann Cerniglia is here with me. Our third partner that worked with us this summer, Rodney Slappy, couldn't be here tonight, but he also participated with us this summer. So I teach chemistry, Michael Ann and Rodney teach history. So we collaborated on a modern world history unit, one of the last units of their curriculum, which is globalization. Next slide. So modern world history and chemistry are both taught to 10th grade students. The modern world history classes are combined together. So we have our AP modern world history students in the same classrooms as our experiential learning world history students. So Michael Ann came up with X level to represent the experiential learning level students. So all of those students are in the same classrooms together. And then in chemistry, we have general chemistry classes and honors chemistry classes. So Michael Ann and Rodney are teaching all of the grade 10 students in modern world history, and Mary Breyer and I are teaching all of the 10th grade in either chemistry or honors chemistry this year. So every single grade 10 student at Sewickley Academy will participate in this project this year.
And you've already talked with Mary, about
Mary,
this.
Yeah, Mary and I have already talked, and our chemistry classes are actually during the same class periods, which is really nice. We're really excited to maybe have kids moving all around during our chemistry classes when we work on this project. Oh, also, I wanted to mention this project isn't happening until the spring. And as I forget who mentioned it earlier, but once the school year starts, we all know how hectic things get. So we are still very much in process on this project. I will be presenting more work to my Critical Friends group in December. So that's going to light the fire under me to get more of this done. But we are still very much in process of working through this. Next slide. So we thought it would be interesting to show, Michael Ann's going to show how the modern world history class goes, because it's very student-centered, gamified, where students get to make choices of what assignments and activities they do.
Okay, so the way that the course is structured, we put as Tracy explained, what were the AP and the sort of just regular non-AP, but I really didn't like referring to students in that way. So I just, as not this. So I really liked the idea of, AP students are assessed based on the type of assessment at the end of the course and at the end of the units. And the type of assessment that we were going to use at the end is more experiential, project-based learning. So it's the course is Excel, and it's based on the type of assessment for those students and the AP kids. So they're learning the same things, they're learning the same skills, but they are being assessed in different ways. So this is an example of this. In a way, there's a little bit of gamification in here. We're sort of working up to that. We've gone through units 0, 1, and 2, and Rodney and I have made some adjustments as we go. Right now, we're in unit 2, and this is what a unit looks like. So we start off, and the students sort of watch for homework and a flipped classroom kind of thing of video to just get an intro. We do I do an intro slide to just sort of say, this is what's going on for the whole unit. So they get a preview of it. And then we have essential questions. There are so many of these because they're tied to the learning objectives for AP, and we're still trying to streamline that. And then the students, it'll tell them what they have to do for their formative assessments in here. And then they get into the quests, and it tells them what they're required to do. So if they're in AP, they have to do all 4. If they're in XL, they get to choose 2. and so that's the process that they're going through in this, the Prezi. And then the level 1 is knowledge acquisition. The level 2 is application. And they're actually doing some activities. So they're going in to do the AP chooses 2, the Excel chooses 1, and they go in and they're doing graphic organizers and things like that. So this is what we're building. The last part is, again, the project. This group is making a document trail right now, and the AP kids will be having a AP test that is using documents for analysis. So they're working on the same skills. So that is sort of the way a unit will look, and we're building that out for Unit 9. When we get there, we're not quite there yet, and that's how we worked together, and the pieces that we're looking at for this unit that we worked on this summer. Let me go back to this. Hold on. Here we go.
So we'll be building out Unit 9. We've done some building, but it's definitely not finalized. So we'll be building out Unit 9 so that it's interdisciplinary with history and chemistry and science in general. So we wrote some essential questions based on the AP curriculum and the next generation science standards that students will have access to for Unit 9. So here are some of our essential questions. You can see that we've bolded some points, right? We're interested in new technologies, how they're impacting the environment, how do modern societies depend on technological systems, how do we use scientific knowledge and engineering design practices with new technologies to increase benefits and decrease costs and risk.
And we had taken all of the AP learning objectives, and then which we were using as essential questions, and then also the next generation science standards. And we were doing this over Zoom in the summer workshop, and we put them all together. And then we said, okay, here's where these converge, and we can put these two together. So we really merged them to come up with these 6. The last 2 talking about leaders and national international policy, and and how social categories, roles, and practices been maintained and challenged.
We also spent a lot of time in the summer talking about the facets of the global lens that Michael Goodhart shared with the group this summer. June mentioned these as well in her presentation: connections, divisions, disruptions, inequalities, and productive possibilities. We did our own brainstorming in our group to think about how we would incorporate these into Unit 9 to clarify our own understanding, and we're hoping to use these with the students as well. So we have essentially the same assignment, the same culminating assignment for both groups of students. The X level assignment, they're going to design a game that demonstrates the connections and consequences presented by a new technology. And the AP level, could you switch slides? And the AP level is also going to design a game, but their focus is going to be on an environmental debate and its impact on human populations. So the thinking was that with the AP level, selecting an environmental debate, something like climate change, for example, and how we should move forward in addressing climate change, is going to allow the AP students to dip into more interdisciplinary content. They'll get to talk about global health. They'll get to talk about sustainability. They'll get to pull from more areas if they look at an environmental debate. Whereas the X level students, can you go back a slide, Michael Ann? Yeah. Where the X level students will get to focus on one specific technology, nuclear energy, for example, which will give them a narrower focus for their project. And when we say game, we don't mean necessarily like a Candyland style game where you sort of roll dice and, answer trivia. We will probably play a couple of board games with the kids. We like to play Pandemic with students because it's such a great model of how diseases are spread. There's some beautiful game mechanics built right into the game. So we really try to work with the students on using game mechanics to mirror what they're seeing in the real world. So we're not just rolling dice or picking cards and answering trivia. How can we represent this effect that you're seeing? How can we represent that in a game mechanic and make it seem more real?
Yeah. And how can you make the game tell the story of what's happening?
Right.
So that we really push the kids to try to get to the analysis instead of just the what. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Instead of just the surface of what, but how is this happening and why is it happening? And how can we show that in a game? I guess it doesn't even have to be a board game. Yeah.
Yeah. But we've had kids do card games. It's not always board. It's
Yeah.
Okay.
So another part of their assessment is that through their games, we want them to look at the connections, disruptions, divisions, inequalities. So these facets, again, we want to see that they're assimilating these ideas into what they're learning, and then this output of a game.
Oops.
So just for a general sense of some of the content areas, this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but some of the content areas that are specifically mentioned in the AP curriculum and that we've brainstormed about are things like the Green Revolution, travel, shipping, communication, energy technologies, I'm sure is going to be popular. I just did a very small introductory unit on nuclear energy with my honors chemistry class, and they had tons of questions about nuclear power. So I already am sort of predicting that some of the kids are gonna want to look at energy technologies when we get to the unit 9 in history. Medical developments, debates about the environment, and diseases and global health.
And Tracy, just to reinforce that these are not just content, these are content areas that are in the AP history, world history curriculum, but they are also ones that we work together to decide, coincide, and overlap with chemistry, and that you would be able to pull those threads into the chemistry class, so that the students the idea came up, someone had brought up earlier about not having all the same students. And that was one of the benefits that we felt, having like all of the 10th grade being able to do this in both history and in science, that they would really get some benefit from this.
Right. And I've been very intentional about, I added that little nuclear energy, those couple of lessons, because I know that this is coming now. So I've been intentionally sort of dropping little seeds of knowledge for them.
Tracy's been so good about plugging in with the kids on the history stuff too. She even read our summer book on Genghis Khan. So you really
who was quite the believer in science and engineering practices.
Yes, he was. That's true. Yes. Okay. Is that,
I think that's it.
yeah, that's the last
And I
one.
didn't make a
So,
question slide.
but we are open to
We are
questions.
open to questions.
I will say that two of the things that we ordered from the Stanford Spice curriculum, the infectious diseases and public health, and the international environmental politics program. So we're going to have those available, and we'll have a little bit of time to be able to look at them before we get to Unit 9 in the spring.
Any questions? Veronica.
Sorry, I'm like the question person.
No.
I was curious more, Tracy, because to be honest, Tracy, I understand what Michael Ann does a lot better than the science part. I've outed myself on science, but I was curious. You know, when you look at AP Chemistry or AP Science, did you find it easy to collaborate with history because it's a natural mesh, and be honest and don't be modest,
Yeah.
or did you feel you had to really adapt because you wanted to, but you really needed to adapt your side of the curriculum?
So I think this is going to be a really long answer. So I think it is difficult because I've had to make a lot of mental shifts because of the way I teach chemistry, especially because I also teach AP chemistry. So our AP chemistry course is for students who have already had a chemistry course, and the AP chemistry curriculum is huge and very content driven. And I try as much as I can in honors chemistry to support the students and myself for their future AP chemistry journey. So that means a lot of what I do in honors chemistry then becomes content driven as well, to get kids ready for AP chemistry. So I've had to make a lot of mental shifts. Right, I added this little nuclear energy unit because it's not a huge part of the AP curriculum. It's not something that's, widely covered in chemistry courses, but I knew that it was going to come up again later in the year. So I added a couple of days about it. Some things are super easy for me. When we talk about conservation of mass, it's really easy to talk about sustainability. And I will say that I've been doing this work for a long time now. It still causes me great, as Michael Ann will attest, it still causes me great anxiety and I get stressed out a lot. But Michael Ann and I have been working on integrating things for a long time. In governor school, in another class that we taught together at Sewickley Academy, Global Game. So I'm getting more comfortable doing it because I've been doing it for a while.
So Tracy, what kind of advice would you give for our science folks who's a lot of times they don't see themselves in part, of the curriculum in a global studies type curriculum or a global curriculum? And what advice would you give them?
I would say make friends with your history teacher colleagues, is number one. I've learned now I wish I could go back to high school and take all these classes and learn all this history that I missed. I mean, I did take history classes and I did well, I promise. But I obviously didn't focus enough on it. So make friends with your history colleagues. Learn a little bit of environmental science. So learn about the principles of sustainability, and learn sort of you don't have to learn a ton of environmental science, but learn a little bit of it, because that's where it's easiest for me to make connections, because I know the principles of sustainability, and a lot of global issues come back to those principles of sustainability. Yeah.
And Veronica, I would also add to this that there are so many times that I start taking the history and turning it into social science. So it's not actually science, but it's that social science. And
Look at my
Tracy
face.
will sometimes say, yes, so Tracy will sort of say to me, that's not science. and I'll say, but we're asking kids to look at a chart or a graph or whatever it is that I'm asked, that I'm trying to make this, I'm really trying to make a connection to something. And she'll just say, no, that's not science. And she'll just say no until we find the place where, yes, yes, that works. That fits. So she doesn't just give in. And I think that that's been something that really has worked well for us.
Yeah, no, and it comes clear. And that's why I kind of outed myself, because I think I'm on your end on the social science part, like pretending that I know something. And so I was curious because in a great way, our science teachers are hardcore and they're like, this is the way to do it. And so it's really nice to see that collaboration. And even with the presenters before who have biology and chemistry. And I was just curious to hear how you guys made it work.
Yeah, by talking a lot and arguing productively, I would say. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy, Michael Ann. Any other questions for Sewickley Academy?
So when it comes to the chemistry part, does it look very similar to the gaming Prezi for world history?
My chemistry class is not set up that way right now. But Mary Bray, the other chemistry teacher, and I, we're kind of waiting to see how Michael Ann and Rodney's experiment went. So we have very intentionally been lining up our curriculum this year. So like I did the nuclear chemistry unit, but she skipped it. So it seems to be going well in modern world history. So we're trying to get to that model. I mean, my dream is to have all the kids together all the time, learning all the subjects, right? But I don't think that's going to happen.
I mean, I think to some extent the final, we'll probably be working together on what the formative assessments are going to be. And then we already decided on what the summative assessment is. So that will be posted for all of the kids on the Prezi.
Oh, yes, yes. For Unit 9, they'll all be in the Prezi. Yeah, that is correct. Yeah. But the rest of my courses are not set up that way. Yeah.
I'm taking a pause to see if there are any other questions. Thank you. Again, Sewickley Academy. Unfortunately, the Westridge team is not able to join us after all. They're still in their faculty meeting. And this really brings us to the close of this virtual showcase. I wanted to ask you all I know somebody already had, some of you have already sent me your presentations, but if you wouldn't mind sharing those with me or Ashlyn or global@pitt.edu, and we'll have them in one place. We'll send you an email to remind you as well. And lastly, I wanted to ask if any of your schools have written anything in the annual report, in the newsletter, about your involvement with this project at Pitt. If they have written something about it, if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us as well to kind of compile and keep it in one place. But again, I'll send an email as a reminder so you guys don't have to think about it now, but once you have a minute to think about that. With that, I'd like to close and I'll stop the recording. Thank you again for participating this summer and for coming to present during the virtual showcase. And we will be in touch for our future iterations of interdisciplinary global educators, as well as with other programming that we have put on and are planning.